Okay, so the next part will be on classification and regression. As I said earlier, classification and regression is in fact supervised learning. To run classification and regression, we need label data. Okay. Okay. So classification, right? There is a dedicated chapter on this for you later, right? So now, very brief story on classification. So in the previous example of cat and dog, I'm sure you understand what is a classification. That if you have only two classes, for example, spam email and non-spam email, then we call it binary classification because only two classes. Whereas most of the time we end up having too many classes, multi-class. For example, handwritten character of 0, 1 till 9. So we have about 9 classes, right? We want to identify what number it is based on what you write. Okay, so this again classification, but this time about 10 classes, so we call it multi-class classification. So the story is like, this is a simple example, right? So here we have two characters, x1, feature x1, feature x2. So we plot it, and then when we plot it, we know the labels. The color is actually labeled. Yeah, the color is actually labeled. So each point represents one instance, one observation. So we can see we can draw a nice like curve there to separate these two groups, right? So the story of binary classification is that to find this line actually, right? This line. So machine learning does that. It will give you a deadline in order to break. So if you have a new data, if it falls here, then it's going to be a green label, right? Whereas if it falls on top here, it's going to be a yellow label. Okay, that is binary classification. Of course, if you have like 3 classes, probably like you might end up like doing A, B, and C, right? There are going to be 3 areas representing 3 classes. Okay, that will be multi-class. Whereas regression, right? Regression, you see this now. You have again, there's this, here X is your feature, and then Y is your target. Okay, you give label, of course, it's going to give you the target. Okay, so you have one feature, given X, you want to know what is Y. So if you have done regression before, it's basically you are trying to find a function which really will mimic your data, right? So for example, if we given to you a value here and value of X, you know what is your target. The target will be this yi. So given to you xi, so you know based on your regression model, yi is the answer. So your targets are real numbers, right? Real numbers. Whereas if I go up, right, my targets are integers, right? Either class 0, which is green, or class 1, yellow. Okay. The output actually differentiates between classification or regression. If your target is in the form of classes, you do classification. If your target is in the form of real number, you do regression. Okay, this is how you choose what to do. Okay, so then you get to see the differences between the two, right? Classification and regression. Chapter 3 is going to be on regression, and then chapter 4 is going to be on classification. Okay. Now, so what we did so far is that we get to see the type of machine learning. So classification, regression, clustering. This is the 3 methods that we are going to study and investigate in detail. the first two methods are supervised, right? Actually, I forgot one more. We will do dimension reduction also. Okay, so these two are unsupervised, unsupervised. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Right. So of course, our tool would be Python. Our predictive model. You know what predictive model means. You know what machine learning, the type of machine learning means, right? Of course, once you finish your course informations, we go through your course informations PDF file, you know what tool to use, how to use later on. Okay. So the last one is overfitting, underfitting. Okay. And just again, you might just understand later on when you do it, you will understand for real. You'll understand, you'll concrete your understanding on overfitting, underfitting. Let me straight away show. Okay. This will tell you the whole story of overfitting, underfitting. Okay. Now, underfitting means your model. Here, a regression model. What is a regression model? It's actually the line representing your data, right? That is a regression model. So here you see the regression line here does not really fit your data. Yeah. So for example, the prediction here, if I do the prediction here for this xi, yi is incorrect. This is yi actually incorrect, but it should be somewhere around here, right? Should be somewhere around that. So a proper regression fit would be this model here in the middle. This is so you understand what is underfit. Underfit, basically the accuracy is not good, right? It is not really your output, your model. Yeah, the model is actually a line, as I said. It's not really telling the story of your data, really not predicting the data. Whereas overfitting, you forced your model too much. Maybe you already give the model everything. For example, you have this value, this point here, right? You have this point. You want to ask what is the value of this point actually, but you already give upfront. Now take. So it knows the answer, right? It's as though like it has memorized everything that you want to ask. Every single point you want to ask. You push it too much, this is what it gives you. The model looks very complicated. Imagine you want to represent it in the form of an equation, right? So very complicated equation. It is overdoing things. That's why we call it overfitting. Okay. For classification, you see now here we have two groups, two classes. Class in blue, class in magenta, right? So the first one here, it doesn't really break because you see a lot of errors actually, right? A lot of errors. Okay, but for a better suiting model will be this. You see, if a point falls here, I know it's going to be high likely it's going to be blue, right? The class will be blue, not magenta. But of course, it made a mistake here. It's okay, right? Not bad. Imagine you do a group like this. I mean, a class like that. First of all, representing an equation, it's going to be very, very hard, very, very complicated. And then the equation itself, too much. The accuracy will be like maybe 100%. It's actually 100%. It accurately broke into two groups. But in terms of prediction wise, believe me, it's bad. Right? Again, I mean, when I look at this, it's like in Malay, we call it soalan bocor. Right? The students know the answer. The student here is the model. The model know the answer. Why? The student, you have given everything to the student. You're not doing any kind of assessing at all when it comes to exam. See? Understand the difference between overfitting and underfitting. Overfitting happens when we expose test data to the model. Model knows, yeah. Or you overly, what do we call it? So-called overly optimized, right? So we have to like find a middle path, yeah. This is a good model rather than overfitting or underfitting. Okay, so that is the story of overfitting and underfitting. Okay, so there's a sweet spot between overfitting and underfitting. Yeah, there's a sweet spot. The accuracy would be, of course, good, right? And well, okay, the training set, training accuracy and the test accuracy will check. We actually will check both, right? There should be a sweet spot, right? Okay, and so there's another two term that you need to know before we end this class. So what the first term is bias, and the second term is variance. We don't really use it, but for our understanding, okay? So bias measures how far off the prediction are from the correct values. Okay, so bias is how far off the prediction are from the correct values. In general, we build the model multiple times with different training. This is the key actually. We believe. Bias is the measure of the systematic error that is not due to randomness. So regardless, we do multiple times of like training the data set. Yeah, we get some sort of accuracy, and that accuracy we see the error. So in fact, the error is the measure how far off the prediction from the correct value. Whereas the variance measures the consistency of the model prediction. Consistency of the model prediction for a particular sample instance. So if this particular sample instance means we take a part of the data set and we calculate the variance, right? Example, different subset of the training data set. Different subset might have different variance. So one with a lot of variance, which means there are a lot of differences between the data, right? The other part may be small. So we can say that the model is sensitive to randomness. Okay, so the way you choose your sample, your variance will be different, right? If your variance is different, then it is sensitive to randomness. If, for example, all the samples mean value is the same, then we know it is not. Okay, so very much this bias and variance related to your overfitting and underfitting. Okay, the sweet spot that you want to beat is here. So the model complexity. Yeah, model complexity decreases. I mean, the bias decreases as model complexity increases. You make the models very, very, very complicated, like this, for example, super complicated. Of course, your error is very little, so your bias is very little, right? Almost none actually, no bias at all. Okay, whereas the variance, your variance is this. This is represented by your variance. As your model complexity increases, your variance increases also. You see your variance here, very different, right? Very different. Your variance increases. So, for example, this point here, very different actually. Right? The model. So the model is so complicated, right? As you can see, the model is really, really complicated. And it goes like that, right? So your variance of the data also increases. This is very different than the rest of the data, right? So if you try to really capture that, as the variance is very different, the model becomes very complicated as well. Okay. All right. So I think, okay, we're almost done. The last part is the ethics. So ethics ethics basically boils down to the first is the way you collect your data, and second is we are quite fast, right? Second is the outcome of the model going to execute. Yeah, I will show an example. Okay, the first example. Now you have told the machine to drive the car such a way that to avoid hurdles. This is a hurdle, right? This is a hurdle to avoid hurdles. So the car going to avoid hurdle. Unfortunately, we have people crossing the road. So regardless of what, if you do not really adopt the ethics of AI, it will might end up banging the people, right, crossing the road. So it's a simple example, such a way that we have to make sure that it takes consideration of human being, not so the rules and then the conditions should be as such that it does not what here the case would be to bang the human beings, right? Okay, so let's say if you replace with if we replace these human beings with animals, then can we bang? Is it? Can we knock? Can the car knock the animals? No, no, also, right? Cannot also. So we have to like write. We have to be responsible enough to write proper terms and conditions for the AI to do the right thing. That's the first part. Okay. The next part is I think where is the data? Oh, I have the data. The next part is data collection. Okay, next part of data is data collection. There's a data set called Boston housing data set. Okay, in this Boston housing data set, we have many features, column 1, column 2, column 3, until column, I think column 8. There's one column, I will talk more on the next lecture actually. There's one column, this column is on column 9, is actually on housing price. The idea is that you use all these features and to predict the housing price. The housing price is your target. Okay, housing price is your target. You want to target the house price based on all this feature 1 to picture 8. Right. There's one feature. This feature is number of black people. Black people in the data. So it says no like it considers this black people as a feature to predict the housing price. More black people, house price drop. Let's say. Is that right? Not right, isn't it? So that's another thing of AI. So when you give the data, right, when the way you collect the data, it should not, it should not be racist. In this context, it should not be racist, right? So you have to be careful with that. So these are the main two things when it comes to ethics in AI. Okay, of course, UNESCO. I have put the link here. You can click on it. And the UNESCO has come with some policies and terms and conditions under this umbrella called ethics AI, so that we adopt machine learning and AI in a responsible way. Okay. All right. So I think that's all for this lecture.